the marginal cost of cognitive labor is, well, it's plummeting toward absolute zero.
Yeah.
And it is happening at a velocity that just completely defies every traditional economic model we have right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's unprecedented.
Right. Because right now you have this relentless open source rebellion, and they're releasing models into the wild that can, effortlessly pass the bar exam in the top percentile.
It's thicker than tongue, yeah.
They write elegant production-ready code. They can diagnose these complex, multivariable medical conditions just from like a blurry photograph.
And they're doing it for literally nothing.
Exactly, for the cost of the electricity to run the processor. We are not looking at a mere software update here or, the next iterative tech trend.
No.
We're watching the real-time commoditization of human thought just playing out live on our monitors.
It represents the most, dramatic and violent economic phase transition we've seen since the Industrial Revolution.
Wow, violent is a good word for it.
It is, because what we're witnessing is intelligence, right? The very asset we've spent, decades cultivating in universities.
Right, the thing that justifies the student loans.
Exactly.
Right.
The singular trait that justifies our salaries, our corporate hierarchies. It's becoming as cheap and abundant and just invisible as tap water.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And when the core engine of the knowledge economy transitions from this scarce premium resource into an ambient utility, every single structural pillar of our society has to be entirely re-architected.
Yeah. And I know you have been tracking these open source model drops really closely this week.
Oh yeah, nonstop.
And looking at the implications for your own firm's overhead. So we pulled the latest data to figure out exactly what this means for your workflow. Welcome to MediaGenX.
Glad to be here.
We're taking a deep dive today into surviving, and not just surviving, but accumulating wealth in the age of the intelligence singularity.
Which is the key, right?
Right. Because the mission of this specific deep dive is to map out how to decouple your self-worth from your economic output. And more importantly, where you can find profound positive utility when the machines are doing all the heavy lifting of thinking.
Because the mechanics of this transition, they're just unforgiving.
Yeah.
Those who misread the macroeconomic shifts over, say, the next 12 months, they'll be structurally swept away.
Swept away.
But if you deeply internalize the new rules of this landscape, you can position your capital and your career in a way that makes you, virtually bulletproof.
Right. The goal here isn't just survival, it's leveraging the asymmetry of this moment.
Exactly.
But I do want to say we're also going to dissect the darker implications of this asymmetry.
We have to.
Yeah. Later in the deep dive, we're going to explore this terrifying evolutionary trap of outsourcing our cognitive friction to algorithms.
It's a massive risk.
It really is. There is a very real danger that we might accidentally engineer a society of these hollow, Wall-E minds.
Yeah, just floating around in chairs.
Yeah, exactly. But before we get to the biological consequences, we have to ground ourselves in the reality of the present market dynamics.
Let's do it.
Because the story of how this happens so quickly is just a massive subversion of expectations. If we rewind the tape just a tiny bit back to early 2023, the entire narrative pushed by the market was one of inevitable total centralization.
Oh, 100%. The prevailing consensus among institutional investors, technologists, everybody, was that superintelligence would be permanently locked behind these expensive gated APIs.
Right, controlled by just $2 or $3 trillion Silicon Valley conglomerates.
Exactly. And the thesis was straightforward, right? Building these models required tens of billions of dollars in CapEx.
Like astronomical amounts of money.
Right. You need proprietary GPU clusters the size of football fields and, access to the world's most elite researchers.
Right. So the assumption was just that the barrier to entry was too high for anyone else to play the game.
Yeah, that was the consensus.
So we were essentially preparing to live in these massive walled gardens of thought.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, the fear was that we'd all just be relegated to renting our intelligence from tech giants in perpetuity.
Paying a toll.
Exactly. Paying a premium toll for every prompt, every line of compiled code, every data analysis query. But those walled gardens of thought have just been completely bulldozed.
Utterly flattened.
Right, by this grassroots intellectual insurgency that literally nobody in the C-suite properly priced in.
Well, what's fascinating here is the sheer speed at which the global open source community shattered that monopoly. It's staggering.
It's unbelievable.
You look at their release of models like a Meta-Rho Llama architecture, right? Or Mistral coming out of Europe. And you combine that with the collaborative power of literally thousands of anonymous developers on platforms like Hugging Face,
Just working around the clock.
working constantly. And the moment the weights of these highly capable foundation models leak, or if they're officially released to the public, this decentralized global army of hackers and researchers immediately goes to work deconstructing them.
And because these hackers are aggressively quantizing these massive models, we're suddenly seeing them run seamlessly on local consumer hardware.
With no latency.
Right, without the latency. They're stripping out the computational bloat to the point where a model that previously required a massive server rack.
A whole data center, practically.
Yeah. It can now operate on a standard laptop in airplane mode.
Which changes everything.
It really does. The reliance on massive corporate infrastructure has just been completely severed.
They're taking these enterprise-grade cognitive engines and optimizing them to run locally on your own hardware
Right.
with zero API costs
Yeah.
and total privacy, which is huge for corporate use.
Huge.
And then they're fine-tuning these lightweight models on highly specific niche data sets. They're building localized, uncensorable versions tailored for incredibly narrow industrial tasks.
Wow.
So the macroeconomic result of this decentralized optimization is this massive, accelerating deflationary spiral in the cost of applied intelligence.
Which fundamentally rewires the money angle here.
Oh, entirely.
Because when something that historically commanded a massive premium, like forensic accounting, legal discovery, senior level data science, when that suddenly drops to a virtually free utility, the entire financial architecture of the white-collar workforce breaks down.
It does. And this is where the popular narrative, the one driving all the current panic on social media.
Doom scrolling.
Exactly. It gets the economics entirely wrong.
Interesting. How so?
Well, the mainstream assumption is a straightforward one-to-one replacement theory.
Right.
They think if cognitive labor is free, human knowledge workers are rendered instantly obsolete.
Like an AI writes the code for free, so the enterprise fires the whole software engineering department.
Right. They pocket the savings to boost margins, and the total aggregate number of coding jobs permanently drops to zero.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I buy that analogy for physical goods.
Okay.
But cognitive labor feels entirely different. Like, if I have an AI that writes perfect conversion-optimized marketing copy, I don't suddenly need 10,000 marketing campaigns.
Right.
There is a ceiling to how much copy a single market or a single consumer can even absorb. Doesn't the idea that demand will infinitely scale break down when that demand actually hits a biological or attention-based limit?
That is the natural counter-argument, sure. But it frames demand solely in terms of volume directed at the end user.
Okay.
To understand the flaw in that, we have to look at the Jevons paradox.
Jevons paradox. Remind me how that works.
So back in 1865, there's this British economist, William Stanley Jevons, and he was observing the adoption of the coal-powered steam engine.
Okay.
James Watt and his contemporaries had just engineered steam engines that were vastly more efficient, meaning they required significantly less coal to produce the exact same amount of mechanical thrust.
Okay, so the intuitive leap for the policymakers of the 1860s was that greater efficiency would naturally lead to a sharp decline in overall coal consumption.
Right. They thought, oh, we're going to save so much coal.
Yeah.
But Jevons proved the precise opposite occurs.
Really?
Because the steam engine became so cheap and efficient to operate, it suddenly became economically viable to deploy it across thousands of new peripheral applications that were previously impossible.
Oh, I see.
Or financially prohibitive. They didn't just use less coal to run the existing rail lines, they put steam engines in textile factories,
Right.
in deep shaft mines, in transoceanic ships.
Wow.
The collapse in the cost of mechanical energy unlocked a massive new frontier of utility. And the total aggregate consumption of coal absolutely skyrocketed globally.
So the efficiency didn't destroy the demand, it violently multiplied it.
Exactly.
So when we map that 1865 call dynamic onto neural networks today, the elasticity isn't just about blasting more emails at a customer.
No, not at all.
The elasticity is found in hypersegmentation and internal operational complexity.
Yes. The demand for software, for strategic analysis, legal auditing, it's practically infinite. It's only constrained by cost.
Right.
Think about it. The only reason a regional mid-sized logistics firm doesn't have a team of 50 Fortune 500 level data scientists auditing every single supply chain variable in real time
It's because they can't afford the payroll.
Exactly. They can't afford it. The friction limiting their operational perfection is human cost.
So the moment the cost of high-level cognition drops to the price of electricity, that logistics firm doesn't just fire their one overworked IT manager.
No, they deploy a swarm of 100 highly specialized AI agents.
Wow.
One agent acts as a dedicated legal counsel, monitoring every single vendor contract for compliance drift.
Just constantly checking it.
2047. Another acts as a weather predictive supply chain optimizer, working around the clock to reroute trucks.
That's insane.
Another dynamically re-renders personalized interface portals for every individual client based on their specific inventory needs. The sheer volume of cognitive work being executed within the global economy is going to increase by a factor of 10,000.
So you stop being the engine and you start being the steering wheel.
That's a great analogy, yes.
The AI provides infinite cognitive horsepower, but without a human directing the vector and setting the parameters, it just accelerates into a wall.
Right, it doesn't know where to go.
So the 10,000x explosion in cognitive output means the bottleneck in the economy shifts entirely from execution to curation.
Yes. The machines can generate infinite Python scripts, right? Infinite legal briefs.
Yeah.
But they cannot inherently decide which strategy aligns with the nuanced, deeply emotional, and contextual long-term goals of a business.
Right. They don't have human context.
So the human undergoes a fundamental shift in their economic role. They become the orchestrator.
So you aren't writing the legal brief yourself anymore. You are commanding a symphony of 1,000 agents, feeding them highly specific local context, correcting their drift, and aligning their raw output with a broader human-centric vision.
Exactly. The professionals who capture wealth in this new paradigm will be the ones who can manage and direct this massive new cognitive capacity.
Rather than those who try to compete with it on a basis of raw execution.
Because you can't compete with zero cost and infinite speed.
Right. Now, that macroeconomic 10,000x explosion, it makes sense on paper.
Sure.
But I want to pivot to the micro-level reality of living through this.
It's intense.
It is.
Yeah.
Because if we are acting as orchestrators, commanding thousands of agents, doesn't that inherently disconnect us from the actual craft of our work?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what happens to human psychology when we start making things? Let's talk about the Tuesday afternoon dread.
Yes, we are colliding with the crisis of Homo faber.
There is this deeply visceral, gnawing anxiety sweeping through the knowledge workforce right now.
I hear it from colleagues every day.
Right. It is the very specific feeling of staring at a monitor at 2:00 p.m. on a Tuesday, or lying awake at 3:00 a.m., and realizing that your entire professional identity, everything you built through years of university, the student debt, the decade of corporate grinding to master a specific software stack, it's all tied to an output that a localized neural network can now synthesize flawlessly for a fraction of a cent.
This disruption penetrates incredibly deep into our societal DNA. I mean, for the last 300 years, essentially since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, we have defined our personal and societal worth almost exclusively through economic utility.
We really have.
We operate under this philosophical framework of Homo faber, which means man the maker. The core belief is that you are what you produce.
It is so ingrained that it's just the default script of human interaction.
Think about a dinner party.
Exactly. When you meet someone new at a dinner party, the very first question asked is always, what do you do? We implicitly equate our ability to produce cognitive or physical output with our right to exist in society, our social status, and our baseline ability to provide security for our families.
And so confronting an entity that can produce that exact same value infinitely faster and cheaper, it triggers a profound existential reckoning.
It's terrifying.
It transcends economic disruption. It becomes a total collapse of identity. The primary anxiety stops being merely how will I pay my mortgage in 5 years?
Right.
And it morphs into a much darker question. If a machine can do my job flawlessly, what is my actual purpose in the world?
Wow. And we have been so heavily conditioned by the 80-hour work week, the relentless pressure of quarterly quotas, the whole inbox zero mentality.
Oh, the hustle culture.
Yeah, that the prospect of those things vanishing doesn't feel like liberation.
No, it feels like a void.
It feels like standing on the edge of a massive cliff. If you take away the stress of the commute, the deadlines, the performance reviews, a significant portion of the population realizes they have no idea who they actually are outside of their economic trauma.
And navigating that psychological hurdle is the prerequisite for surviving the transition.
You have to figure that out first.
Yes. We have to violently decouple our intrinsic self-worth from our raw productivity metrics.
That is heavy. But it is also the reality we have to operate within.
It is.
So let's move from that existential dread into highly specific defensive tactics. We need to look at exactly what steps can be taken this week to bulletproof your income, your relevance, and your agency.
Let's do it.
Let's map out the 3 structural sanctuaries we are calling the 3 human moats.
These moats represent the structural, physical, and psychological boundaries that algorithms fundamentally cannot cross.
Regardless of scale.
Right. Regardless of how many parameters they scale to or how much compute they consume, they can't cross these.
Okay, so the first boundary is the accountability moat, which is driven by the skin in the game premium.
This is a big one.
Let's game out a scenario. An AI can perfectly design the architectural blueprints for a massive multi-lane suspension bridge.
Sure. Flawless design.
It can run the load-bearing physics simulations flawlessly, iterating millions of stress tests in seconds. But if that bridge experiences a catastrophic structural failure 3 years later, and 100 people lose their lives...
The AI cannot be indicted.
Exactly. It cannot go to prison.
And that shifts the entire burden of proof and liability. I mean, an AI cannot be sued for malpractice by a grieving family.
No.
An AI cannot have its professional medical license revoked by a governing board. It fundamentally lacks the biological skin in the game that human trust and legal frameworks are built upon.
Right. It doesn't have a life to lose.
It cannot feel the moral, ethical, or financial weight of a catastrophic failure. Therefore, society and our legal systems demand a biological throat to choke.
We require a biological entity to absorb the risk. It's a blunt way to frame it, but the entire insurance and regulatory apparatus of the modern world depends on it.
In any high-stakes environment, whether we're talking about diagnostic medicine, structural engineering, corporate mergers, or the deployment of military assets, the financial premium is no longer placed on doing the cognitive grunt work. The AI can draft the 500-page merger agreement in 3 seconds, identifying every loophole.
Sure.
But a human partner at the law firm still has to physically sign their name to that document and take on the fiduciary responsibility.
Because if it goes wrong, they are the ones who get sued.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The AI can read the MRI and accurately diagnose the terminal cancer, but the human oncologist has to look the patient in the eye.
Right.
They have to deliver the news and carry the legal liability of prescribing the treatment plan.
So the playbook action here is to aggressively audit your current career trajectory and position yourself in roles that mandate deep legal, financial, or ethical accountability.
You have to seek out the risk.
Right. You are no longer being compensated for your typing speed, your ability to synthesize data, or your spreadsheet execution.
No.
You are being compensated for your willingness to sign a binding contract that puts your own neck on the line. You are paid for absorbing risk.
Which seamlessly transitions into the second boundary. Moravec's paradox and the friction of the physical world.
This is perhaps the most fascinating divergence between human and machine capability.
It really is.
Because Moravec's paradox, which was coined by computer scientists in the 1980s, it observes this massive counterintuitive reality.
Yeah.
It is relatively easy to make a computer exhibit adult-level performance on an intelligence test or play grandmaster-level chess, but it is staggeringly difficult, like almost impossible currently, to give a robot the sensoromotor skills and physical dexterity of a 1-year-old child.
The evolutionary biology behind this is crucial to understand.
Break that down for me.
So we spent millions of years of evolution relentlessly optimizing fine motor skills, balance, spatial awareness, and the ability to navigate unpredictable physical environments.
Right, just walking through a forest requires massive calculation.
Exactly. Abstract logic, advanced mathematics, playing chess, these are very recent evolutionary hacks for the human brain.
Oh, I see.
Because they're recent and rule-based, they're incredibly easy to program into a silicon architecture.
That makes sense.
But programming a machine to navigate a cluttered, muddy construction site, to install custom copper plumbing, the gap between digital intelligence and autonomous physical dexterity is just an absolute chasm.
So an AI can pass the bar exam in the 90th percentile, but it absolutely cannot furnace a leaky P-trap under my kitchen sink.
Not a chance.
It cannot retrofit an electrical panel in a 100-year-old house. The physical world is inherently messy, chaotic, and heavily protected by a massive wall of physical friction.
This is trades, right? Specialized electrical work, custom carpentry, high-end culinary arts, physical therapy, HVAC installation.
Yeah.
These are the ultimate sanctuaries of human utility. They are entirely insulated from the zero marginal cost collapse that is devastating screen-based digital intelligence.
And it goes beyond just the physical installation. It taps into how we assign value. Think about artisanal craftsmanship. If I want a dining room table, I can buy a perfectly engineered, mathematically flawless table stamped out by a CNC machine in a factory for incredibly cheap.
Right, perfectly flat.
Yeah. But there is a reason we inherently pay a massive premium for a wooden table shaped by human hands. We actually value the human imperfections.
We want to see the chisel marks.
Exactly. We value the fact that a human being spent time, sweat, and physical friction to create it. Human flaw becomes a luxury good in a mathematically perfect world.
That concept of assigning premium value to the human element leads directly into the third boundary, the taste economy and the curation of resonance.
Right. Because as the cost of generating text, art, music, and video drops to literally zero, the internet is rapidly flooding with algorithmic slop.
It's everywhere.
It is content that is technically perfect, grammatically flawless, mathematically optimized for engagement, yet completely devoid of a soul.
It feels empty. In a landscape of infinite generation, the ultimate scarcity becomes taste. Taste is the deeply subjective, uniquely human ability to look at 1,000 mathematically perfect options generated by an agent and say, this is the one that resonates.
Right.
This is the one that captures the current cultural zeitgeist. This is the one that actually makes me feel something profound.
Because an AI, no matter how many trillions of parameters it has never had a childhood.
Never.
It has never experienced the visceral pain of a broken heart, the grief of losing a parent, or the sublime terror of contemplating its own mortality.
It's just predicting tokens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It cannot create art, culture, or strategy that truly resonates with the human condition because it fundamentally does not participate in the human condition.
So the individuals who capture the most asymmetric value here are the curators, the taste makers, and the storytellers.
Yeah.
Your unique psychological fingerprint, your lived experiences, your empathy, and even your specific eccentricities and flaws, those are no longer professional liabilities that you need to optimize away to fit into a corporate mold.
Right. They used to tell us to hide that stuff.
Not anymore. They are your ultimate economic moat. You leverage the AI to generate the infinite raw materials, but you apply your deeply human intuition to assemble those materials into something that makes another human being feel seen, understood, and connected.
Okay, so we have the accountability moat of absorbing risk, the physical moat defined by Moravec's paradox, and the taste moat guarding human resonance.
Yes.
But how do we synthesize this into a concrete wealth strategy that can be executed in the market right now?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the most lucrative playbook strategy operating in the market today is stepping into the role of the centaur, and specifically acting as the translator.
A centaur meaning a professional who has deeply and seamlessly integrated AI into every aspect of their workflow. You aren't competing with the machine, you have merged with it.
Yes, but the translator role is where the massive untapped wealth generation lies. You take your fluency in these powerful digital models and you physically walk into legacy physical industries.
Oh, I see.
You approach a regional construction firm, a local network of dental clinics, or a mid-sized agricultural supplier.
Businesses that deal in the real world.
Right. These businesses are deeply anchored in the physical world, which means they are heavily protected by Moravec's paradox. Their core business is safe.
Yeah.
But their back office workflows, their logistics, their supply chain management, and their administration are drowning in massive inefficiencies.
And they do not speak the language of AI. The owner of that agricultural supply company is not on Hugging Face downloading quantized open source models to optimize his inventory routing.
Precisely.
Oh.
You step in as the translator, you physically walk into their office and build highly localized, customized workflow automations using these open source tools.
Wow.
You bridge the gap between the infinite digital realm of AI and their messy physical reality. You become the indispensable bridge, and you can capture a massive percentage of the efficiency gains you create.
And from a direct investment angle, the capital allocation playbook is remarkably clear. If digital intelligence is infinite, commoditized, and effectively free, you do not invest in the intelligence itself.
No, the margins there will go to zero.
Right. You invest your capital in the physical bottlenecks required to sustain it. You buy the hard assets that an AI cannot hallucinate into existence.
The physical demands of this intelligence explosion are staggering. I mean, you're looking at the foundational constraints: copper for the grid expansion,
Right.
uranium for baseload nuclear power, water rights, because the data center cooling infrastructure requires millions of gallons of fresh water.
It's massive.
The physical energy transformers. The structural bottleneck of AI is physical energy and thermal dynamics.
The second area of investment is what we're calling trust networks. In a world drowning in deepfakes, synthetic media, and infinite generated content, the ability to definitively prove that something is real or that someone is a biological human becomes incredibly valuable.
Oh yeah, cryptographic proof of humanity protocols, verified chain of custody networks for digital and physical assets, hardware-level authentication.
Right.
These platforms will become the most valuable toll booths on Earth. They provide the only verifiable defense against the flood of synthetic noise.
Okay, so we have covered the macroeconomic shift, the Jevons paradox, the defensive moats, and the investment playbook.
We have.
But we have to pivot to the dark side.
Yeah, we can't ignore it.
We need to examine the profound evolutionary risks and biological failures that are actively emerging from this infinite intelligence. That physical limitation you just mentioned regarding data centers is actually the perfect bridge to why we're seeing human architecture change. Let's analyze cognitive atrophy.
This is the most insidious evolutionary trap we face. In evolutionary biology, there is an unforgiving rule of use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it.
Right. If a species no longer strictly requires a specific biological trait or mechanism to survive in its environment, that trait doesn't just quietly stick around in the background.
It goes away.
It actively atrophies and is selected out over generations.
And we are currently voluntarily outsourcing our cognitive friction to these agents.
Yes.
The clearest historical precedent for this is spatial navigation and the GPS. Think about how we navigated environments just 20 years ago.
Using maps. Reading signs.
Right. We relied on spatial awareness, short-term memory, the identification of landmarks, and just an innate biological sense of direction.
We had to.
But the moment we were handed a smartphone that simply displayed a blue line to passively follow, we surrendered that friction.
Entirely.
And the result is well documented. Our innate sense of direction has massively atrophied. We have entirely lost the ability to build mental maps of our own cities.
We can actually observe this neuroplasticity in real time. The classic studies on London cab drivers showed increased gray matter density in the hippocampus.
Which is the memory part.
Exactly, the area of the brain associated with spatial memory, because they had to memorize the entire city grid, the knowledge, they called it.
Right.
When they rely on GPS, that density physically shrinks. But the GPS only atrophied our spatial navigation. What we are outsourcing to AI right now is infinitely more dangerous.
Because it's everything else.
We are outsourcing our core reasoning, our strategic planning, and our fundamental capacity for critical thinking.
Consider a student tasked with writing a complex analytical essay. The traditional process of staring at a blank page, struggling to articulate an abstruse thought, writing a terrible first draft, agonizing over the structure, tearing it up, and trying again.
It's painful.
It is. That entire process is pure cognitive friction.
It is deeply uncomfortable.
Oh.
But if that student never struggles through that agonizing friction because an AI tutor writes a perfectly structured B+ essay for them in 3 seconds,
Yeah.
they don't merely fail to learn the mechanics of writing, they fail to learn how to think.
Wow.
That friction, the struggle to organize chaotic thoughts into linear logic, is the exact biological mechanism by which the human brain builds complex neural pathways. It is the friction required to develop a coherent, resilient worldview.
So, what does this all mean? If we systematically remove all cognitive friction from our daily lives under the guise of convenience, what exactly are we left with?
The ultimate risk is the development of the Wall-E mind. The true existential danger of the intelligence singularity isn't the Hollywood trope of malicious, self-aware killer robots deciding to eradicate humanity.
Right, no Terminators.
The danger is vastly more subtle and insidious. It is that the machines become so perfectly frictionless, so incredibly helpful, and so hyper-accommodating to our every desire that we happily and voluntarily surrender our agency.
We don't fight the machines, we just hand over the keys because it's more comfortable.
We become biological entities that are passively fed, optimized, hyper-personalized digital content designed to perfectly regulate our dopamine levels. We become perfectly entertained, completely cared for, and utterly devastatingly hollow.
Wow.
We become domesticated pets to our own creations. Our capacity for deep, sustained, independent thought atrophies into nothingness simply because the machine is always there to do the thinking for us, better and faster.
It is a terrifying trajectory, and the most dangerous part is that it happens incrementally, day by day, decision by decision.
Exactly.
Every single time you let autocomplete finish your nuanced sentence, every time you ask an agent to summarize a dense article instead of reading it yourself, you are actively trading a tiny piece of your cognitive friction and neuroplasticity for fleeting convenience.
Guarding your humanity in this era requires active, aggressive intentionality. You have to force yourself to do difficult, inefficient, analog things simply because the biological struggle is necessary for the maintenance of your mind.
Which brings us to the 5-year outlook. Where is this ultimately heading? If we can successfully navigate this massive economic transition, and if we can consciously avoid the Wall-E mind trap of cognitive atrophy, what does a positive future actually look like on the other side?
It requires a massive collective societal pivot in how we assign value. As the era of Homo faber, man the maker, is permanently commoditized, we have to rapidly rediscover and elevate Homo sapiens.
Man the feeler, the thinker, the connector. The ultimate 21st century luxury is not going to be having a faster AI agent or more optimized digital output. The ultimate luxury is going to be unrushed, analog time.
Yes.
True wealth will be redefined by the freedom to engage in deep, face-to-face human connections. It will be having the bandwidth to mentor the next generation, to cultivate a highly localized physical community, to sit in silence without digital stimulation, or to build something with your hands simply for the joy of the craft.
Finding profound positive utility in a post-labor world means your intrinsic value is measured by your ability to be a grounding, empathetic force in your local environment.
Right.
The machine swarms will flawlessly manage the global supply chains, the code compilation, and the logistics.
Yeah.
You will be tasked with managing the human soul.
It is a profound structural shift from optimizing for endless economic output to optimizing for human depth. So let's hit the core takeaways of this briefing. First, the open source rebellion has permanently shattered the corporate AI monopolies, fundamentally driving the marginal cost of intelligence to absolute zero. Second, the Jevons paradox guarantees that this cheap intelligence will not destroy overall demand. It will trigger a 10,000x explosion in complex cognitive tasks, permanently shifting human value from raw execution to high-level orchestration.
Exactly.
Third, to survive and thrive in this landscape, you must retreat into the 3 human moats: the accountability premium of absorbing risk, the Moravec paradox of physical friction, and the taste economy of curation.
And above all else, you have to actively, fiercely resist the cognitive atrophy that comes from outsourcing your intellectual friction to frictionless convenience.
We've talked extensively about protecting your own mind and your own capital, but I want to leave you with this final polarizing question to mull over in the comments. If an entire generation is currently being raised with perfectly frictionless AI tutors systems that instantly solve their problems, write their code, and never allow them to struggle through the agonizing friction of failure, how do we even begin to govern a society that has never developed the neural pathways required for overcoming adversity? What happens to the resilience of our institutions when the people running them have never had to fight for an answer?
That is the question we all need to answer.
Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next deep dive into the one-person media empire, where we break down how solo creators are using AI agents to build $100 million networks without a single employee.
It's going to be a good one.
Stay curious, stay positioned.
Not financial advice. Do your own research.
And remember, protect your mind and guard your humanity.